Today's date is March the 10th, 2015. My name is Ratibu Jaycox, and I'm interviewing Don Griggs for the Archiving Black History Project in the inland area. Don, how do you spell your full name?
Donald, D-O-N-A-L-D, Lee, L-E-E, Griggs, G-R-I-G-G-S.
Where do you get that name from, Donald?
Donald, it was given to me, I believe. I have an uncle named Donald. So I feel it was handed down through the family. They decided to name me Donald after him.
So were you born in San Bernardino?
No, I was
Where were you born?
In Waterloo, Iowa.
Waterloo. And what were your parents' name?
My father's name was Theodore Griggs Jr., and my mother's name was Bertha Lean Graves. Her maiden name was Graves.
Graves. And where were they from? And were they from Iowa?
My father was born and raised in Waterloo, Iowa.
Oh, okay.
And he passed at the age of 78, so he was there 78 years.
Uh-huh.
My mother was born and raised in Iowa as well. She was born in a little town outside of Des Moines, Iowa. I don't think it's there any longer. I think it's called Fairfax. And she, thank God, is still with us. But she was born outside of that little town and moved into Waterloo when she was just a little girl, I think in her 3 or 4 years old.
So do you think it was a lot of blacks in Iowa during the time they were living there? Because most of the interviews I have, people from the South, Mississippi, Louisiana, even Chicago. How did they get to Iowa?
There's some things that happened, like in my family, on my mother's side, most of them came from Virginia. And there were coal mining there in Iowa, so there were job opportunities. So there was a town in Iowa called Buxton, B-U-X-T-O-N, Buxton, Iowa. It was a town that was a coal mining town, just outside of Des Moines from my understanding. It's no longer there. But the blacks from Virginia and outside areas looking for work wound up in Buxton, and they created their own community. And they had a thriving community, from what I can understand. That was, of course, before my time. But they had banks, stores, everything right there in that community, and along with some Chinese and whites, of course, and they all lived together. Now the blacks may have had their side, but everybody was sort of integrated, from what I've been told. So that's where they all started on my mother's side. On my dad's side, my grandfather was born. He's from Durant, Mississippi. My dad's dad was from Durant, Mississippi. Yeah. Now he came to Iowa with the railroad. I think it was Illinois Central Railroad. What had happened? There was a strike, and the workers were not work. So they hired these blacks to take over and work for the railroad. So they worked their way from Mississippi all the way north. And they wound up in Iowa. There was a big snowstorm there in Iowa. And so they had to delay the work. And so they made provisions for some of these black workers by taking boxcars. You know, those little boxcars at the end of the caboose cars. They put them in, they took them off the rail, and they made provision for housing. So I think it took about 10 or 20, however they needed, to house all the black workers. And so my grandfather was among them. Now, this was about 1910, maybe.
1910. Okay. So the turn of the century. This is going on.
And so that's how he wound up in Iowa. When the snowstorm ceased and they moved on, he stayed because.
Was he still living in the boxcar?
I couldn't verify that for sure. They may have started moving out to other areas, but they had them segregated on the east side of town, you know, all the blacks in a certain area. So that's where they lived. And then they started bringing in blacks. My grandfather sent for his brother, my great uncle, and that was in 1912. He sent for him to come and join him there in Iowa. And so that's how our family started there. We were one of the first black families in that town. I think it was maybe about 6 or 7 families when my grandfather
So
decided
did you
to
have
stay
brothers and sisters?
Personally?
Yeah.
No.
So you were the only
I'm an
child
only child
in your
in-
house?
I'm the only child in my family, yes.
Right.
My grandfather had, there was no sisters, but 2 brothers. There's 3 of them. And my grandfather, out of the 3 brothers, he's the only one that had children. The other 2 brothers had no children. And so my grandfather had, I think it was 8, I have to count again, of kids. And so my dad was the only one that had a boy. All the rest
So do you have any boys now?
No, I have 2 daughters. I had a son who's deceased.
So how long did you stay in Iowa, live there?
I lived there. I was born there, of course, and I left.
And what
there,
year was that?
1942.
1942,
December
okay.
23rd.
And you stayed there until when?
Graduation from high school. And I graduated in June, July 2nd, of 1961. I was on a bus headed to Des Moines to be sworn in the Marine Corps. And on July 5th, 1961, I was in San Diego at boot camp.
Boot camp, okay. So from Iowa to San Diego.
That's right.
But growing up, what kind of things did you do as a child in Iowa?
Well, you know, we lived in integrated neighborhoods. I have people that, you know, think that Iowa, you guys must have been the only ones, but it was a really, it was an integrated neighborhood. Everyone around was just, you know, we weren't considered poor, I don't guess. We had our provisions, but growing up, yes, I recall things that probably you might consider us poor. We lived with my grandfather, I recall that as a kid, and we had outside toilet.
Okay.
We had candle lights. We didn't get lights until, I don't think I was in school even. I think I may have been 4 or 5 years old or whatever. I remember they bought a light and, you know, you pull that little string and the lights came on. We were all amazed. So it wasn't really a terrible time. And everyone helped each other. The schools, we're all integrated.
Did you play in the sports or anything as a child?
I did. I loved, you know, football until I got too small. I played football up to junior high school, or middle school they call it now. But my sport was wrestling. I wrestled and that's a big sport back in Iowa, of course. But that was my sport. I wrestled all through high school, and I wrestled when I was in the service, Marine Corps as well.
So do you have a lot of friends, boyfriends, girlfriends that lived in the neighborhood that were friends with you when you were growing up? Quite a few? Or?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I still have some of those friends today. We all grew up in the east side of town. It's called East Waterloo High School was a school we all attended. The west side was predominantly white, and there was one predominantly black family that lived on the west side at the time I was growing up. And you may have heard the name, but matter of fact, the Perkins, they were called. They lived on the west side. Perkins, P-E-R-K-I-N-S. And one of the Perkins that we all grew up with, his name was Don Perkins. Don Perkins played professional ball for the Dallas Cowboys. He was a running back. Matter of fact, he's on the Wall of Fame at this point. But Don and his family, they lived on the west side. He was president of the student council during the west side, only black on that school. And his brothers, there was, I think, 4 of them that I knew. They were all on the west side. And then when Don was a senior, their mother passed. And so the dad moved them on the east side. And they lived right kitty corner across from me where I lived, the Perkins. So I got to know them quite well. And matter of fact, as we speak today at UCLA, the running back, Paul Perkins, that's Don's great nephew. That's Don's brother's grandson.
That
So
goes to UCLA.
that goes to
So
UCLA.
they still playing sports.
Still, yeah, that family is still predominant. Yeah, the purpose.
But during this time, you said it was integrated, and but the school that you went to on the east side, was it segregated or was it integrated?
It was integrated.
It was integrated.
Yes. Now there was one when I was going to grade school. There was one school that's predominantly on the west side. It was called Grant School, and that's predominantly where all the blacks are going to because that's where the only grade school on that side of town. That, as I was growing up, became a predominantly black school. I think we could count the number of whites there on two hands when I was a kid. What happened, I went there 2 years, kindergarten and part of the first grade, and then we had moved from where we lived. We lived with my grandfather. We had moved, and we had purchased a home, and there was that one block, one street there was the borderline that I had to go to the other school called Longfellow. And so when I left grad school in my first grade, I went to Longfellow, and that was completely integrated. There wasn't that many blacks going to Longfellow. So I finished my schooling, grade school at Longfellow.
Okay, and you said you went in the Marines right after you graduated from high school. What kind of experience did you have in the Marines? And that must have been 1961, right?
1961.
Okay, what kind of experience did you have, and how long did you stay in the Marine?
Well, I joined the Marine Corps. It was, let's see, I think it was 5 of us that decided to go on the buddy plan. You know, my dad was a laborer. My mother was a dietitian at the hospital. But prior to that, she did day work. And as you probably know what day work is,
right.
Cleaning houses.
Right.
So, and there was the John Deere tractor work. You heard of John Deere's. That's the biggest employer there in Waterloo. And there was a packing company called Rath Packing Company. Rath, R-A-T-H.
Okay.
And they were worldwide. They used to produce the hams, and when I first moved out here, they were all over. They were a packing company. They were the 2 biggest employers. My grandfather on my mother's side, the Griggs, he retired from John Deere. So that kind of gives you an idea of how long they've been employed and what kind of jobs they had. They didn't have the best jobs, but they had some decent jobs back there, and they were decent pay. But employer-wise, those were the only really true employers back there, you know, those 2 companies. And, you know, of course, there was the smaller companies that you can get involved in, but those were 2 major employers. So I just felt that I didn't see a big future back there.
So that's why you joined the Marines. Were you joining the Marines because you were looking for a future, or were you joining the Marines to get away from where you were?
A little bit of both. A little bit of both. My senior year of high school, well, actually it was my junior year, I think it was. My mom and dad divorced. So I was living with my mom. She was raising me the last 2 years of my high school education. So it was a struggle per se, but she managed because that's when she got this job in the hospital as a dietitian. So our life became a little better, but it's still a struggle. And I did not want that to be a struggle for her. I wanted to help her. And I figured by joining the service, maybe I could help her and get that burden of taking care of me off of her.
So were you working growing up? Or
oh, yeah.
What type of work did you do?
You know.
And did that contribute to the family or just for you?
I would say for me, basically, and that's when mom and dad were together, my first job was a shoe shine. Loved it, man. I was a shoe shiner. And my mentor at the time, his mom, she was a single parent. His mom and he had a room at our house. We had this 2-story house, and they had a room there. So he had asked me one day if I wanted to work. I was like maybe in junior high school. He said, you want to shine shoes? I said, yeah, I'll try it. So I went down and downtown, this white man, I'll never forget him, his name was Bob, I can't think of his last name, but they own a shoe repair shop. And of course, inside the shop, you could shine shoes. So guy that I'm telling you about, his name was B.J. So B.J. had the shine power. B.J. Sims, he had the shine power. So he asked me if I wanted to come in and help. He had an opening. So I went in at junior high school. So after school and on weekends mostly, I went down and made a nice little bit of change there, shiny shoes. And
so you
then,
were 12, excuse me, you were around 12 or 13 then?
I was probably a little older. I would think I would maybe 14, maybe 13, 14 in that age frame, 15. And then after I got to high school, we started detasseling corn. You know, that's taking the tassels off of corn. Back in Iowa, you would know, but that's taking the tassels off of corn, which helps them to grow fuller, you know, the ears to grow fuller. And
I never heard of that.
Yeah, it's like.
And you started doing that in high school?
Yes. It was,
okay.
We had, it was about 4 or 5 of us that got together, guys that we got together, and we formed this, we went out detasseling together. We got so good at it, they hired us as contractors to go out to these different farmers that needed someone to go on their land and detassel in a certain period of time. Detassel.
Decassel.
Detassel.
Okay.
That's taking the tops, those little flowery things on tops of corn, you pull those out.
Oh, okay.
And that helps the stock to grow better and fuller and larger stock, ears of corn. So we did that. And the ironic thing of it is that another point I will make, during high school, the 5 guys, 4 of us, let's see, 4 of us, it's 4 of us that detassel corn. In high school, we had formed this singing group. We had a singing group. We were all in the A choir, and then we formed this, you know, how the groups like Motown was going strong, so we wanted to be singers. So we had this singing group, and we were good. And what had happened, you know, they have these swing shows in high school where they have these shows, you know, premiere shows once a year. So we were featured, not featured, but we were part of this one group. And the show was called a calypso dance. They had all the black dancers, and so we did a song there during that show. But we were not listed in the program. We were not listed in the program, but we did our song, you know. And then the next day in the newspaper, it said that the reporter reported that how the swing show went. It was very nice, and said, but there was a group there that was the most professional group I ever heard at that level, and they weren't even listed in the program. That's what the newspaper said. So of course we stuck our chest out, and from that we were sophomores then, because we performed in junior high school as well. So we got to high school, we did that in our sophomore year. From that point on, we were featured at each show, and we did contests all around the city. We did quite well. And the point I'm making, detassel, the 4 of us were together. That's the group we formed. So we'd be out detasseling and singing and everything. And this one guy that happened to be a foreman out there, he heard us singing, and he was so impressed. He took us into this group of you know, owners that own this fields. He said, "You got to hear these guys sing." And we sung out there. You know, they brought us in.
Were you in church too?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. I was definitely a church member. I joined church when I got baptized when I was. I think I may have been in grade school.
Wait, so that,
I may have been in grade school after I was baptized.
Okay.
So I had been a church member all my life, and I'll expound on that in a moment too. But what had happened with this group? It was 4 of us. Then we had a lead singer who was a female, and the lead singer, her dad was a minister at one of the churches there in Waterloo. And this group of whites, they were so impressed, they wanted to sign us to a contract. You know, they wanted to have us record and sign a contract. So we were all excited, of course. We were, 17 years old, 16, 17. And so when the word got back to the minister, he wasn't too pleased at all. He didn't want his daughter singing for them.
It wasn't gospel songs?
No, it wasn't gospel songs.
Okay.
So he was just, and plus he thought we were underage. He thought we were being taken advantage of, and he didn't want his daughter to do this and do that. So we weren't able to record. I think we started recording one record. We started, put us in like a little studio. We had
So
but he wouldn't release it. He won't let it go. Because
did you have any hope of being a singer or in a group or performing?
After high school, not really. You know, you still have that little urge every once in a while. I was a bass. I was a background guy.
Okay.
I wasn't a lead singer, and I still get that little urge every once in a while. But the church that I was raised in was called Antioch Baptist Church, and that's only to this day. My mother stays on the same street. It's only about maybe less than a block from where I live now. It's one of the oldest black churches there in the city. And every time there's a big politician come to town, that's where they go. President Obama's been visited that church many times. Well, during his campaign, that's the church. When he comes to Iowa, goes to Waterloo, that's where he goes. I happened to be home one day after he had visited the church. I was back home to visit with my mom, and she was telling me that the Secret Service were all down the street and stopping in everybody's house, interviewing them, checking them out. So she was nervous because she lives alone and was in her 80s, and she didn't understand why they had to come to her house. And so it was really interesting to see that our church is still going strong.
Let's get back to the Marines. You're in the Marines,
Yes.
and what were the conditions like in '61? I know Cuba.
Cuban crisis.
Yeah.
That's right. I joined in July through boot camp. In our boot camp, there were, in my platoon, there was 3 of us from Iowa that passed the physical. 5 of us went down, 2 didn't pass the physical. So 3 of us passed the physical. We were all graduated from school together, so we all knew each other quite well, went on a buddy plane, 3 of us in that platoon that we knew. And when we got there was, I think, 3 or 4 more blacks, maybe, in our platoon. It was called 344 was our platoon. It was from 342 to 345 was the battalion that we were in. And then one of the other battalions, battalion 345, there's only one black guy. His name was Gibson, I don't forget him. And I can't think of the others, how many there were. But it was interesting being from Iowa. We always got the fact that no one believed that there were any black people in Iowa. So we used to get ribbed about that when we first got there. And one of the guys I went through boot camp with at the time, his name was Robert Moss from San Diego, who was a very good friend of the Guild artists. And they all know each other. And of course, they all live in San Diego. Robert Moss was turned out to be a big-time football player. He played football for the Marine Corps, but he was about 300 pounds, a big guy. And everybody thought he was just fat, but he was the most agile athlete I'd ever seen. Made more money with him because people thought he couldn't run, he couldn't do this. And we said, "Oh, Moss can beat you running." "Oh, you got to be kidding me." "Oh, I bet 20. The guy was good. But anyway, so we had the only challenges we had, basically, was with some of the Marine Corps was a challenge, period.
Period.
That was a challenge, a physical challenge, and mental challenge. And where we were raised in Iowa, the segregation thing, you call me a name, it's on. We fighting. I mean, it wasn't any, "Oh, I'm sorry, I got to get off the side." I mean, it was on. I mean, that's how we were raised. You step on my foot, you better tell me you sorry, we're going to fight. I don't care what color you are. And that's just the way we were raised. So when we got in the Marine Corps, the 3 of us, our attitude had never changed. So we ran across a few guys from different areas that we had to prove who we were. So no one knew who we were when we came there, boot camp. But when we was ready to leave, when you say Iowa, they say, "Oh, Griggs, Butler, and Austin, oh." Don't mess with those guys. They're some mean guys. We fought our way through the boot camp and with Robert Moss, and some of the other guys were there. They were a little more passive. One guy from Denver, Colorado. Other guys, they were a little more passive, but we were pretty aggressive with our beliefs as far as what we believed and what we wouldn't take. Now, there was one time we almost got in trouble there in the Marine Corps. There was a drill instructor that came up to me, and that's when I had a little baby face, and I think I had a little little baby hairs under here where you really couldn't see. And every day in the Marine Corps, they make you shave.
Right.
Where you need it.
Where you need it or not.
Yeah. So I didn't shave. So I got away with that for quite some time. And one day, this drill instructor, who was a big guy, his name was Holdridge, I'll never forget him, just from Texas, just probably about 6'3", about 230, and just all muscle, you know. And he'd come by me, look down at me. He kind of saw a little hair sticking out. He said, you know, I can't tell you exactly what he said, but he didn't call me any nice names. But he looked at me, he says, "What's that under your chin?" You know, I said, "What's that?" He says, "You know what I'm talking about, is that hair?" He says, "You trying to hide that hair by the color of your face, boy?" And I cringed, and I saw my two homeboys. I saw them jump too, you know. So I said, "No, sir." He said, "Yes, you are. You trying to hide that beard by the color of your face, boy?" Anyway, we had that little confrontation with him. So afterwards, the three of us got together. Said, "We're gonna get him. You know, he doesn't talk to us like that." So we planned to get him. So the three of us, we had we knew the routine, and we knew where they were and where the drill instructor. He's a drill instructor. So we had planned on him when they changed guards there at the shift. We knew where he walked to get back to the barracks. We was gonna ambush him. So we don't get this guy talking to us like that, you know. We don't take that from nobody. So anyway, the word got around to one of the other drill instructors. And so the night that we were planning on doing this, we got it's called the duty hut thing. So you heard
what now?
It's called the duty hut. The duty hut means that's where the drill instructors are.
Uh-huh.
So we got and once they want somebody in the duty hut, all the drill instructors would say is either "Griggs to the duty hut," and then everybody repeats it. So everybody hears "Griggs to the duty hut, Griggs." So there's three of us, Griggs, Butler, and Austin, to the duty hut. So what the heck? So, you know, and also we hear it echoing throughout our barracks area. So we get to the duty hut. So this one drill instructor say, "I want to see you out back." So, all right. So we go out back and we stand at attention. He said, "There's word, I understand that you guys are planning on doing something." I said, "What is it?" "Oh, no, sir." He said, "Well, I just want to know how many niggers we got out here." Oh, man. What did he say? You know, I said, "How many niggers we got out here?" And one of my homeboys, "We don't have any niggers out here, sir." He said, "Well, that's what I wanted to hear." He said, "You guys are about to ruin your career. I know what you plan on doing, and it makes no sense. Don't be foolish." He said, "Let me tell you something. I'm married to a Japanese white guy. I'm married to a Japanese lady, and I know exactly what you're going through. Don't take it to heart. We're going to get you through this. Don't mess up your career, because if you do this, you're going to jail. You don't want to go to jail." He preached to us. So we settled down and went back, and this guy really saved our you don't know what could have happened. You know, if we'd have done that, we'd have definitely gone to jail.
Right.
And that my whole life would have changed. Mm-hmm. So to this day when we talk about it, we commend him for pulling us to the side. You know, when you're 18 years old, you know, your understanding is zero. And plus in that environment, it's all about who's the toughest. You know.
And you were smaller, I guess, than some of the other fellows, but yet you were just as strong or brave.
Yeah, well,
have you ever had any restriction based on your size or height?
No. Well, when I was in high school, I wrestled at 127 pounds in high school. So I was a little guy going in the Marine Corps. In the Marine Corps, I think my max weight in the Marine Corps was I got up to maybe 165, but it was pretty solid. And I had I didn't say a little man's problem with that, you know, but I always felt that people would take it for granted, and so that was my advantage. I loved it because, you know, people think, "Oh, there's a little guy," and that was my advantage. And the Marine Corps, I always taught your best defense is a good offense.
Good offense.
So my first thing, I'm first. So I know, and I will say, when I was overseas, they called me. When I was in my old days, called me Juice. I was one of the smallest guys in the company, so I was in recon then when I was overseas. But we couldn't. Everybody thought we were a little off. We were recon. You know, recon is like that's like the Navy SEALs of the Marine Corps. So we couldn't get fights anywhere. So everybody knew who we were. So they used to send me in first to these clubs where the airborne, all those guys were. They send me in, and they'd be partying, and I pull the plug out of the jukebox. And everybody said, what the? Then I started just fat mouthing, talking about people and their mama and everything else. And who is? And all my boys standing outside the door, waiting, And somebody comes up to me and says, who the hell? And boom, I fire on them, and then that's it. Here the boys come. Recon, oh man, oh no, here we go. So they always send me in to start the fights because I was a little guy. But that was my thing, So yeah, I never let size be, and the Marine Corps wouldn't allow that. They test you.
You're right.
They test you, and they always did. And I had a little gunny that was about my height, about 5'8", little gunny sergeant. This guy had 3 black belts and everything else you could think of. And I mean, I seen him wipe out a whole bunch of people. And he loved it, But no, and the guy that I really admired was our first sergeant. His name was Lyday, big guy, about 6'2", 6'3", about 230. Marine Corps birthday is November 10th. He was born on November 10th, got married on November 10th, got divorced on November 10th. Joined the Marine Corps on November 10th. I mean, he was gung-ho all the way, and probably the biggest, meanest man I ever seen in my life. Tough. We used to run 10, 15 miles, and if you didn't make it, he'd make you run it again, and he'd run with you. Run backwards sometimes. Just tough guy. But yeah, he used to, and he would go in and start fights. He used to beat up the officers. I mean, he was just crazy. It was time. Marine Corps was a good experience.
Did you know what you were leaning towards in terms of education, career? What were you going to do? How long did you stay in the Marine?
I was in the Marine Corps 4 years.
4 years, okay.
You mentioned I was in the Marine Corps when the Cuban crisis. I just got out of boot camp, and so I was in Camp Pendleton, I think, then, and so we were slated to go, my outfit. So we had live ammo. We had all of our vehicles were down at I think we were San Diego. We were going down to San Diego. We were on ship, ready to go. We were aboard, ready to go, and we're just waiting for the word. And so we were ready to go 3 or 4 days before, and then we'd already sent a forward echelon there. So part of our group, our company, had already gone over just to do some reconnaissance to see what we're going to do and how we're going to do it and that kind of stuff. So we were just there waiting. So that was some nervous times there. You're sitting aboard ship, live ammo, just waiting for somebody to say, okay, we're on. And thank goodness, it didn't happen, of course.
Didn't happen.
But so I was there in the Cuban crisis. I was overseas when President Kennedy was assassinated. I was overseas and I was
where were you? What part? Or where you say overseas?
Okinawa. I was in the Far East. I was in Okinawa when that happened. Okay. I was on guard duty, and I was due to take the next shift, and I was in bed when they came to wake me, and I said, Corporal Griggs, what? I got another 3 hours. Said, no, you got to get up. The president has been assassinated. I said, what are you talking about? And I kind of stood up in the bed, and I was on base, and all the lights were on. It's not like, at night everything is off, but all the lights were on, and you see a lot of movement. And so we were, again, we didn't know what was going to happen. And what had happened, we didn't know if we had to go. No one knew what was going on. We just knew we had to be ready. So they got us ready. They brought everyone in from Liberty, got us all together. Again, live ammo, Geneva Convention cars, sit and waiting to see what's going to happen, because no one knew who did it or what was going to happen. So we were on standby there. That was another trying experience. And then again, while I was still overseas, I was with the 6th Fleet or 7th Fleet, which we were all over the Far East. Okinawa, I was in Korea, Taipei, the Philippines, Hong Kong. We just floated. We was on float, that's what they call it. We were out on float, headed to Australia. First time the Marines been to Australia since World War II. And that's when Vietnam broke out. So instead of sending us to Australia, we were aboard ship. They had called General Quarters. They brought us up and told us, hey, What happened in Vietnam is Madame Nhu, I don't even remember the story, but that was, Madame Nhu and her brother was running Vietnam. They assassinated her brother, I think it was. And that's when they didn't know what was going to happen in that country. And that's when broke Vietnam out. So communists was taking over. So they brought us aboard ship and general quarters. That's when everybody comes up and they give you your orders. Said, okay, we're not going to Argentina or New Zealand. So we're going over to Vietnam. Said there's been, you know, a coup.
So you went
there.
to Vietnam?
Well, what had happened,
Okay.
they just didn't send us. They, we were on alert to go, and I was in recon. There was 3 companies over there. I was in Charlie. There was Charlie and Delta. Yeah, A, B, C. Charlie and Delta was over there. Two companies, or two companies. We were over there. A and B were here in the States, so we rotate. So it was just 2 of us over there. Charlie company and Delta companies. I was in Charlie. So they sent us out because they weren't sure what we were going to do, and they were talking about maybe having to send troops over to this place called, which is Da Nang now, but we weren't sure what it was going to be. But we were talking about landing troops, so they prepared us. They sent us out, and we did some rubber boat training. We did submarine training, where they took us down in subs, and we were down for maybe a couple days, and you know, getting briefed. And then they bring us up, and they put us on rubber boats. We went outside. I think it was an island off the Philippines that we were training. And what they did, we, because they weren't sure who they were going to send in, either Delta or Charlie, to do some reconnaissance missions. So we had to go on rubber boat training. It was about maybe 6 or 8 rubber boats. And what they do, we were with the sub will surface maybe 2 or 3 miles or further out at night, and then you have to go in to the island, and you know, and you got a map, and you got to do some reconnaissance. You got to see how deep the water is. You got to check the terrain, where there's villages or whatever. You got to do all that reconnaissance work, and the thing of it is to do it and not be seen. That's the whole thing. That's what recon do. Our training was we had to go out, and they would send us on these rubber boats, and we'd be out there and just doing some reconnaissance missions on these islands, preparing to go to Nam. And we were out there for a day or so. You know, we had to go in to those islands and hide our boats or whatever. And then they give us a date to come back in. Said, okay, you're going to be at this court, this 2 miles out. This coordinates at 1800. The sub will come by and stick that periscope up, and the lead boat. Our boats are all tied together because we got to pedal out there for 2 miles or whatever it is, and we have to be out there to meet the sub. The lead boat, the periscope would be around looking for us, and the lead boat would throw a loop over that periscope. And then once you hooked on, we're talking to them with our walkie-talkies, of course, and they'll pull us out another mile or 2, and then surfaces, and then surface, you know, we jump on, deflate our boats, boom, we're gone. In the hole, boom, we're gone. Now, what they tell you is that there's a 45-minute interval. So if you're not there within 45 minutes, they assume the worst. They're going to leave you. And that was the whole thing about Nam. You know, I said, okay, we're going to send you in there, but this is the whole thing that's going on. If you're not there when we tell you, you know, then we assume that something happened. So, you know, you make it a point to be there and be there early. You know, so anyway, long story short, when we were all prepared, they decided to send in 1 company instead of 2, either Charlie or Delta. They sent Delta in, so I didn't have to go. That's why I missed now. We were on standby, but they decided to send Delta. So Delta company went in and did all the reconnaissance missions. So we were on sub, just waiting, and they didn't need us. So that's, and the thing that, when we got back to Okinawa, we got to, you know, we were all together and go downtown, you know, in the Ville there, and they got the papers, newspapers.
Talk a little louder.
Got the newspapers.
Okay.
And the newspapers, of course, were all in the language, so you can't really read it, but you can see the pictures. And the picture on the front page of this new Japanese newspaper was about Selma, the dogs, and the hoses, And here I am, we just left, you know, your life is in jeopardy. You're about ready to defend your country, and you look at this newspaper, and you see what they're doing to our people back here in the States. I mean, instant anger. Instant anger. I'm not risking my life for these folks to treat my people like that. So there was a lot of angry black GIs, soldiers and Marines and everybody, you know, was angry about what was going on back here in the States. And of course our thing was, you know, that's not happening to me. When I get back there, you know, plus we're angry with all the white GI around us. You know, if you talk with a Southern accent, then you got to go. You know what I mean? Everybody just, all of a sudden, we were predators against some of our own because of that, unfortunately. And we had, overseas back at the time, we called some of the whites, it was called Chuck, you know, for Mr. Charlie, you know, we call them Chucks, it'd be, you know, a little cold. So every Tuesday was Chuck night. So we go in the building, you know, beat up somebody. You know, that's what it is. Some
so Chucks. Do you think that helped shape you for, let me skip ahead and come back, but do you think that helped shape you for some of the civil rights battles you won since you've been here in terms of your employment, owning your own business or whatever?
Well, let me tell you this story which helped shape my attitude. Because I was just about ready to come back to States. There's 13 months over there. So I maybe had a couple of months to do, and there was this little young lady that worked, Japanese lady that worked in our laundry, you know, they did our laundry. And she was a young little lady, kind of took a liking to me, and, you know, and she asked if I would like to go home with her for dinner. Yeah, of course. You know, so,
girl.
Yeah. So anyway, she took me back to these, you know, not where the GIs hang out, but where they live, way back up in, you know, up these hills and stuff. And so we took a bus and we got back, we walked, and a couple things happened. On the way there, you know, they don't see or mingle with too many GIs or whatever, and blacks. So on the way there, we walked past these elderly Japanese people, and all of them who walked by me, they kind of turned to the side and kind of turned their back to me as I walked by. And I look around, and then they, you know, they straighten up and continue. And I know that a lot of the white GIs used to tell all those Japanese people, especially the girls, that all the blacks grew horns and tails at night, and, you know, tell all these stories about us as blacks. And so immediately that's coming to your mind, you know, that these people think I'm a demon, you know. So that happened about 2 or 3 times on the way to this young lady's house. So I'm pretty much steamed about then, you know, but I let it ride. So I get there, and we get there, and so her grandmother is there, and her mother, I guess, and her father were there. There's 3 of them, you know, living in the house. So of course they all speak Japanese, and mine was just very limited. But so I sat down, and so the grandmother she was just fascinated with me. I mean, you know, because she hadn't seen a black, so she kept just staring at me. And so I finally asked the lady, I said, why is the grandmother staring at me like that? She says, oh, you're a warrior, you know. So, yeah, you know, yeah, okay, you can call me that. And she said, and I said, well, tell me something. I said, coming up here, these people that turn their back on me, you know, ask her why elderly people do that to blacks. You know, I asked her that question. So she did. So the grandmother responded. And she said during the war that the Japanese had this battalion cornered, you know, Americans. And they were about to overrun them. And then the blacks couldn't fight. They were in the motor pool, or they were in, doing cooks, mess duty. They weren't on the front lines, you know. And she said that, and they were about to overrun this group. And she said the whites retreated and put all the black soldiers on the front line. She said those black soldiers fought so gallantly, and that they earned the respect of all the Japanese from that point on. Said they never seen anybody fight so hard that didn't know anything about, they hadn't seen them fight in battle before. And she said that's a sign of respect. I said, oh, You know, I mean, but do you hear about that in your history book? So, and I said, oh, okay. And she said, ask him if he knows anything about his history. And she asked me, and I said, well, you know, I mean, back then I didn't know much about teach black history in school. I didn't know that much. And so I just said, well, I know a little. So, like your books over there, she started pulling books out. She had a bookshelf like that, started pulling books out of her shelf and started fingering through them, started reading about some of the black people that were heroes in the back in the Greek days. She said a lot of the Greek soldiers, I think, that we are so much think are heroes, so a lot of them were blacks. She said, but you Americans, you don't recognize that. So why not? And I'm sitting there and said, I'm flabbergasted. This Japanese old grandmother was teaching me black history. I said, wow, I'm here in Japan getting a history lesson about my people. That's a shame. As soon as I get back to the States, first thing I'm going to do is learn more about our people.
So this sort of shaped you for your mission in life. Now, were you married at that time?
No.
You weren't married. When did you meet your wife?
My wife and I, we went to high school together.
She's from Iowa as well.
She was born and raised there just as I was, yeah. She was 2 years under me. Went to school together. So
were you married during this time?
No. I got married when I got back to the States.
You went back to Iowa? I
went back on leave. I had a year to do when I came back from overseas. I went back to Iowa, came back out here, thought I'd go home in December to see if there was any jobs or whatever. Went home, left out here, Norton Air Force Base, got a hop, December 12th, never forget it, 1964. I got out in July 65, got 1964. Left here, December 12th, it was 84 degrees, got a non-stop flight from here to Offutt Air Force Base in Omaha, Nebraska. Then I was going to take a bus in Iowa. Got there, it was 18 below zero. So, needless to say, that made up my mind. I was not going back to Iowa. So, anyway, so I came back after that, and I sent for her. I sent for my wife.
To San Diego.
Yeah,
went San Diego.
And we got married in Oceanside. And we got married in March, and I got out in July.
And what was her name?
Celestine.
And her last name before you got
Brown.
Brown. Okay.
Brown.
And so you were here. How do you get to San Bernardino then? From after you got out of the Marines, how do you get here down this?
My last duty station was 29 Palms. And that's where we got married in Oceanside, but I was stationed at 29 Palms. The guy I was telling you about that I went into service with, he had married my cousin. And so they were stationed in Oceanside, so that's why we got married in Oceanside. But my duty station was 29 Palms. So then after our marriage, we moved out to 29 Palms. And so that's where, and one other guy went in prior to a year ahead of me. One of my neighbors went in the Marine Corps. He was a year ahead of us, who still lives here, by the way. He got discharged a year ahead of me, and he had a girlfriend here in San Bernardino. So when I left 29 Palms going into Liberty in L.A. or whatever, I normally would stop by to see him here in San Bernardino on my way to Los Angeles, because I had an uncle who lived in Los Angeles. So I knew a little bit about the town at that time through him only. And he lived in Delmon Heights.
Delmon Heights.
Delmon Heights. So anyway, so after I was discharged, my cousin that won in Oceanside, the guy I joined the Marine Corps with, married my cousin. He and I decided that we're not ready to go back to Iowa. So we said, man, we joined the same time. We got out the same day, July 2nd, 1965 is when we both got discharged. So he discharged from Oceanside. I'm from 29 Palms. We decided to come down to San Bernardino about 2 months or so before I discharged to talk to our friend here, Marshall Sims is his name, to see if he could set us up in a home or whatever, see if we could find a job. And so we pooled our money together and said, okay, if we can rent a house for we had enough money to last us 6 to 8 months. And if we could find a job, we'd stay. And if not, we...
What were you, in Delmon Heights too? You were living in Delmon Heights?
No, our first place we rented a home was on 19th Street between State and California.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right there on 19th Street. That's we first
So did you meet Hardy Brown somewhere at that time?
Hardy and I met, well, what had happened, my first job was with, I finally got a job with Kaiser.
At Kaiser?
Kaiser Steel. And I got fired before my probation period was up. You know, that's
what?
Well, let me tell you this. I worked in the blast furnace. That was the dirtiest.
Kaiser Steel now you're talking.
Kaiser Steel, yeah.
Okay.
And what had happened, my wife at the time was, when I got out of service, she was pregnant. So I needed a job desperately. So when I got that job, I was elated. And so, but you're on I think a 6 or 8 week probation. And you have to work these different shifts, like daylight, swing, and then graveyard. And then once you get the daylight again, then you're off probation, then you're permanent per se. My last shift, I think it was a graveyard shift. I was to work with this guy, and I don't want to call his name, but I'm saying he was a foreman, the only black foreman in the whole area, only black foreman. And so they list your name on the shift that you're working. And so I didn't know anybody, hardly ever, didn't know. Only a few people I know in this town lived here, and I met them in the Marine Corps. Ronnie Baker, I knew Ron Baker, and a few others that I knew from the Marine Corps, they lived here. So I didn't know anyone else. But these guys came up to me, black guys, says, "Are you Griggs?" I said, "Yeah." "Man, you working for this guy?" I says, "Okay." He said, "Man, he fires every young black guy that comes up there." And I think to myself, evidently they're not working. I said, "I got to work, man." I'm thinking to myself, well, I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Okay." So I went into work, got there early, of course, and and found out what I needed to do, and I tried to double it and everything. Somebody wanted something, I was there, and during the break, they take breaks, I got the broom out. I start sweeping. I mean, I just want to show them that I wanted to work. And anyway, the second or third day, I got a call when I got to work, and they said, "Griggs, yes, well, they want to see you in the superintendent's office, and take all your gear with you, boots and all." I said, "Okay, they must going to move me to another department." They impressed with me. So I get down there, and the guy said, "You're Griggs?" I said, "Yes." He says, "Well, the foreman indicated you're not carrying your weight there, so I'm going to let you go." I said, "What you mean not carrying my weight?" He says, "Well, that's what
you couldn't what?
Wasn't carrying my weight.
Oh, okay.
On the floor, so they had to let me go. So I was irate. I'm just out of the Marine Corps. My understanding wasn't too good then, So anyway, I found out where he lived, and I was about ready to do something to him too. I found out about him, and
sound like you, Flo.
Yeah, I was really devastated, and so. My wife and they talked me out of it, So anyway, not too long after that, I started looking around again, and I started asking some people, which I didn't know too many blacks at all, but I see brothers or whatever. I said, "Look, where's the jobs at, man?" I said, and I always felt utility companies were good, solid jobs. And I said, "What about the gas company, the water company, the electric company?" And everyone I spoke to said, "Man, they don't hire no blacks." And again, my thought, just leaving from overseas and all the other things that I've witnessed, my thought is, if they don't, they're going to look me in the eye and tell me they don't.
Right.
Don't just tell me that they don't do it. Someone's going to look me in the eye and say, "No, we don't hire you." And I want to know why. And so that was my attitude. So I went down to Edison Company, one of the first places I stopped, and asked, the regular procedures. And they let me fill out an app, and I filled out the app, and they wanted to take the and I asked if there was a test I needed to take, and they said, "Yes." I said, "Okay." So I took the test.
8 minutes. Go ahead.
I took the test, and and the lady that was the human resource director, her name was Geneva Hillman. Nice lady. We struck up a conversation, and you pretty much tell when people kind of say, if you want to say impressed or whatever. So she kept engaging me in a conversation. So she said, "You want to take the test today?" I said, "Sure, I'll take it. Take it today." So anyway, they tested me. And at one part of the test, it was too easy. And I said, this can't be right. you know, they must want the reversed answers. You know, it was about some of those stuff that wasn't really anything. So, excuse me, I reversed what I thought it should have been, what it should have been. Anyway, so took the test, and so I called back there that week and asked her. She says, "Oh, Don, you did excellent on the test, but that one part you didn't pass." She says, and I said, she said, "A lot of people mistake that in that area." She says, "Do you want to take it again?" I said, "Of course." She said, "Well, come on down," and I went down, and she said, "Take this book home with you, study that too." She gave me a book to study. And so anyway, I took the test again, bam, passed everything. So she said, "There wasn't any openings." You know, I said, "Fine." I said, "Okay, so do you expect it?" You know, I'll start. So she says, "No." I says, "Okay, you mind, I'll be calling and checking in with you to see if there's anything. I'll take anything you have, part-time, anything." She says, "Okay."
Were you working anywhere at that time?
No, I was not. I got fired from Kaiser. So I was, you know,
needing a job.
Needing a job. So anyway, I'm trying to think. That was, I got out in July, August, September. That was around September. I got out in July. So that was within 2 months. I worked at Kaiser for almost a month. So I was about maybe unemployed for about maybe 3 weeks to a month in there in between. So anyway, I called just about every other day. And finally, about 2 weeks into it, she called me. She said, "Don, are you still here?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Well, we have a part-time meter reading position if you're interested." I said, "Of course." She said, "Well, come down." So I went down, and they had a part-time meter reading position, and then it was called West Riverside, which is Rubidoux now. And they had, Edison had an office there on West Riverside on Mission Boulevard. So she told me how to get there, you know. So I, gave me all the information and things. So I drove over there, got there, and got everything I needed, physical, and I started reading meters.
How many blacks was reading meters then? I got a couple more questions. I'm going to stop, and then we're going to do this again. But how many people, blacks, were working in meter readers?
When I got there,
yeah,
I was the only meter reader that was working on this side. I mean, I didn't read San Bernardino. I read West Riverside, Rubidoux, and all the areas there. I was the only one in that office. And they farmed me out to Paris, Romoland, Moreno Valley, but then it wasn't Moreno Valley now, but it
Sunnymead.
Sunnymead, yeah, Red Meter, Sunnymead, all those areas out there. I was the only one. When I went to Paris district, I had no idea that there were all those blacks lived way back over those hills, because I get the meter reading book and I don't see anything but hills. They said, "No, you go down this road here," and I'm reading the book and it tells you how to get to the meters. I get back there and I see all these homes and everything. My very first day out there, I'm reading, I come up with these homes and it had a little store and club, and I said, "Wow." And so I had to knock on the door. It tells you instructions. I had to knock on the door to get to the meter. It was in the backyard and had a fence. So I knock on the door, and the lady comes to the door, and I said, "Hi." I said, "I'm from Edison. I want to read your meter." She said, "What you say?" I said, "I'm from Edison. I want to read your meter." She said, "Are you the meter man?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, honey, we got a colored meter man. Come on in, baby."
Don, but that high point, I'm gonna stop right there because it's about an hour and I want to stop there. But I'm not finished with you. I just want you to know I just like to stop in an hour. Okay. You can turn it off, take a break.